going to take you to Israel with Dr. Inbar Maymon Pomeranchik. I hope I pronounced your name
perfect
correctly. Thank you. I realize it's late in the day your time, and sincerely appreciate you spending time with us today. It's kind of early for us still.
Yeah, here it's 10 p.m., a little bit after 10 p.m., but all good.
Oh, thank you. So for the audience, Dr. Pomeranchik is the founder of Biodiligence, and today she's going to discuss research and science for cultivation perfection. And with that, I'd like to ask if you could share a little bit of how did you get into the industry and what's your background?
Yeah, for sure. So I have my PhD in plant molecular biology, many years behind the desk, working on plants and on cells of plants, and not particularly in cannabis, because 5 years ago there was a little bit of research on cannabis, but it wasn't, people were very hush about cannabis. 4 years ago, I decided to switch side and started to consult investors in the industry of agri-tech, food tech, and life science. And suddenly, a lot of investors, it started with all the everyone started to talk about cannabis and wanted to understand more about cannabis, and a lot of investors said that for them was cannabis was equals money. So every time they heard cannabis, they wanted to invest in, but then they understood that they don't understand anything. And it's not always cannabis equals money, and they want to understand more. So more and more investors came to me and asked me, okay, so we want to invest in cannabis. Where should we invest in? What is investing in cannabis? Because, when you say cannabis, there are so many things about cannabis. It's the plant, it's the cannabinoids, it's the endocannabinoid system, it's delivery methods, it's everything actually, because everywhere you touch, you can see cannabis. So I started to have more and more relationship with investors and with academy and with startups and in Israel and around the world, and understanding that there is a big gap between technology and business language. And I started to translate science to business. So this is what I'm doing those days in Biodiligence, together with collaboration with a lot of companies in Israel and around the world.
That's fantastic. And with that, I'm going to, since we have Jill Reddish with us as well from GCNC, she's co-founder of GCNC, which is a network that you're associated with. And I'd like to turn the floor over to you, Jill.
Thanks, Denise. Yes, Inbar is one of our advisory board members for the Global Cannabis Network Collective. We really share that mission about strengthening and expanding the global cannabis industry. And we could not possibly do that without the research that's coming out of Israel, which I'm excited to talk to you more about for the next several minutes. So could you kind of give us an update on where the cannabis market is in Israel right now, and why is it that what are the conditions for Israel right now where we're seeing such exciting research coming out of that country?
So Israel started with all the medical cannabis market something around 2008, when it started with one person that had a little bit of problem, and nobody grew here and nobody knew what is cannabis except of the black market. But evidence show, not just in Israel, around the world, that it works. And it works and people like it. But it was very, very hard, as it in over the world, for physicians to give prescription to a patient of something that they don't really understand how it works and what is it what it's doing to the body, especially when there is a lot of bad rumors about cannabis, of course, around the world and everything. And people say cannabis and they think about stone people. But then there were a lot of groups that started to work on cannabis, and we know that early 1964, Professor Meshulam found the THC and the first endocannabinoid also in our body. So it was quite amazing. So it was like the first seed back in 1964 in Israel to start researching on cannabis. But now, so many years afterwards, in each university you can find research groups that are working from seed to farm and then to pharma, of course. And there's many groups, many startups, many technologies. We have on the north the Technion that is working on amazing research over there. Every day we find something new about cannabis. We have the Hebrew University, we have the Volcani Institute, we have the Weizmann Institute. So actually we can see more and more groups of researchers that were working on different things, not only on cannabis, that came from medicine, that came from cancer, that came from seed companies, that came from many different ecosystems and started to work in cannabis and got to amazing results that together with those results and those technologies, we can make this cannabis world something real and unique.
Right. And you mentioned the term startup. And I know that Israel has often been called the startup nation. Could you tell us a little bit about what that means for Israel and how that shows up in the world of cannabis research?
Yes. So Israel, for the one that don't know, is a very small country. Only 8 million people, but we have a lot of startups every year. Every year, something like 500 startups, new startups are out there.
Wow.
And not only, of course, on cannabis, but many startups, many new minds are working on new technologies. And we can see what I'm doing for investors is due diligence, technical due diligence, technical and business due diligence, of course, but the technical due diligence is the more specific due diligence on companies. And when you see companies, you can see in the cannabis industry many companies that came from other landscape. For example, companies that came from seed technologies, agriculture technologies that are doing spin-offs into the cannabis world. And it's very nice to see. 5 years ago, I saw a lot of companies that said, okay, we invented something that will change the world. And then when you go and you deep dive into this technology, you see that it's not a new technology. And you know already these technologies from different startups and different worlds. But nowadays, I can see a lot of big companies, still startup companies, but with proof of concept in different fields that are taking this proof of concept, doing a little bit of tweaking over there, and then going into the cannabis world, which is amazing, I think, because it gets other people and other minds out of the cannabis industry to see and to look at the cannabis. Because 5 years ago, a lot of people said, okay, we don't talk to me about cannabis. If someone said my company is working with cannabis, they didn't really want to look at it. But now when they see that it's a company that is doing something else and it's all about the technology, and the cannabis world is a real world with real technologies, and it's a spin-off of another company, so you can see a lot of people that are entering into this world from both sides, from the investigation side and from the investor side.
And so can you tell us about the impact that has when you have so many people coming from different industries? Does this mean that you can advance the science and the research and the technology? I'm guessing that means faster. Can you share any examples with your own company?
Yeah, so again, my company is a consulted company, but I'm working with a lot of technology companies. But I can give you a very good example. I'm going back to the seed company. When we're talking about seeds, so it's very easy to say that, if I want a tomato, I can buy seeds of tomato and I put a seed and then I know what I have afterwards because I saw what I'm buying or what I'm growing, and then I have it eventually. In the cannabis world, unfortunately, we're not there yet. So we can buy seeds and then we can grow the seeds and we can get 1,000 different things. When we talk about medicine, when you talk about medical cannabis, and a doctor is prescribing the patient something, the patient wants to know, especially if it's children like we just spoke with Lorena. The patient wants to know and the physician wants to know that every time it prescribes something, it will be the same and it will work and it won't do any harm to the person that is taking it. So now we can see that a lot of people that came from seed companies that know exactly how to breed tomatoes, for example, or peppers or cucumbers, now they're taking those technologies, and it's not easy technologies. It's not something that you do it from one day to the other day, but it's something that you need to work on. But when you have the tools to do it on different crops, you can take it and you can go to the cannabis world and to do it quite amazing. We have in Israel a company that actually succeed in doing gene editing in cannabis plants. And when I'm saying gene editing, it's not GMO, it's not genetically modified organism, it's just taking a specific gene, changing something in the cannabis plant, changing something small and make it different.
Is that the CRISPR technology, or is it related to CRISPR?
It's related to CRISPR, yeah. When you say CRISPR, again, it's a big word. We're using a lot of big words like cannabis, cancer, CRISPR, and each word has so many subtitles underneath. But yes, it's the CRISPR, and you can do amazing things with it. So when you talk with a company that knows exactly how to do it, and then it takes all the technologies, all the POCs that they already did, and they are taking it into the cannabis world. You can have, it's not a magic, you still need to get it done, and you still need to do it in a very scientific way with all the parameters and controls and everything. But it's something that it's actually amazing to see how the world changed from 5 years ago to today.
Mm-hmm. In terms of how quickly in terms of the rate of research and how quickly you're able to get to where you want to be, is that what you mean?
It's not just the rate and how quickly you can do it, but how seriously you can do it. 4 or 5 years ago, you can see a lot of people that thought that they can invent the wheel, but it's not starting from scratch. It's taking a crop and making it what it is actually, and using techniques that are already there, and using research and things that, we're researching plants for many, many years. We have a lot of data, and now taking everything together, it's fast, but it's also make the cannabis world a lot more serious. And people that understand science, when they see something like this, they see that it's a serious world and it's a real world, and it's not just a hype.
Yeah, I'm very much hearing themes of communication and sharing knowledge between different, what would have been siloed more like 50 years ago. We operated much more in silos. Now I'm hearing a lot of communication from you. There's still such a need for funding. Could you tell us about what the landscape is for funding and your experiences in that?
So again, when we're talking about, we need to understand there are startups and there are companies that are a bit bigger and different rounds. So when you talk about startup, it's more of angel investors. You don't see yet VCs that are entering into this industry, but more people that understand the sector and want to invest and want to help the company to go to the next level. But however, when you talk about companies that are already a bit more mature, you have a lot of companies here in Israel that, as I said, are working on specific agriculture field, and then they're spinning off to cannabis. So you can see a lot of VCs that understand, because it's very easy to see the cannabis market and to see the numbers, to see how you want to be there. So when it's a company, it's a big company that already succeed and have a lot of results that are showing something. So we can see new VCs that before said that they will never enter the cannabis sector. Now they are investing and they're looking at cannabis companies that are working with cannabis, which I think is amazing. And you can see that the world is changing. If you had asked me 4 years ago, I would never think that now I will stand in stages and talk in front of people about real research that is being done in cannabis and about money that is being transferred and real results, and it's quite amazing and interesting.
It is. It's so encouraging, isn't it? I mean, you referenced, 4 or 5 years ago and where we are now. Where do you see us being in 4 or 5 years from now, or where do you at least hope that we can be?
So, I always it's frustrating because it's science and it's not when we say fast, it's not really fast. However, a couple of days ago, as Lorena said about Mexico, so in Israel, we got announced that probably, again, I'm very, very cautious, but probably it will be legalized for recreational cannabis in the next year. So this is something amazing.
What a big step.
It's a huge step, and I don't. Maybe Joshua will add a little bit after me. So we quite shocked. It can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing, but I think it will be a good thing because a lot of money will come afterwards, and once you have money, the research is much more easy to do. And once you will have more and more results on real and genuine research as it's being done in universities, in academy, and private companies, and you will have good results, physician will enter and would like to prescribe for the patients. You can see already that it's happening. I think that 2 years ago we were with 42,000 patients, and now we're already 70 something thousand patients, which is a big step also. So I believe that in 5 years and even less, it will be, it will be much more easy to talk about cannabis, to see new research, new people that are working on it, new people that want to go into it. So we'll be in a very, very good place.
Exactly. It's exciting to think about where Israel especially will be leading us in the next 5 years. I do want to just check in with Tasha in the group to see how we're doing on time and if there's any questions from the audience that have come in, because we could certainly keep talking for quite a while.
Okay, I know that Tasha has a question.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I have one and Doc Rob has one too, so I don't know how we're doing on time, but let me go ahead and ask my question. What's the next thing about cannabis research / business expansion that you were excited to see? In addition to all of the things that you have already mentioned, because you've already mentioned so many very exciting things. So, what else is there that that's exciting for you that's coming up?
Oh, I really can keep talking about it because I switched to the business side, but I will always be a scientist. So every time I see new technologies, I got wow, and I'm amazing about new things that people can do. Something that is really exciting right now is the encapsulation thing, because we know that cannabis works, but we know that when you take a little bit or you put it on your skin, it doesn't always work. But now we have a very new encapsulation technique that knows exactly how to take the molecule and to put it in a very, very specific formulation in order to know that what you put in your mouth or on your skin, it's exactly what your body will absorb. All this world to a very different position. It's not just put and then you don't feel and maybe you feel, so it's quite interesting.
That is really exciting because then you know that the efficacy of the medicine is there. You know for sure.
Exactly.
And I think Doc Rob is ready to ask his question now.
Oh, hi. Hello. I was in and out today. Sorry, I've been very busy, but great to connect. And thank you for joining today, Doctor. As I've focused on research right now in some new areas in cannabis, how do you look about international relationships, international partnerships when it comes to research collaboration, as well as just kind of there's a lot of opportunity, I guess, especially with Israel.
Yeah. So collaboration is the key topic that we always talk about. Myself, I'm working also in the UK, in Colombia, in the US, and the most important thing is collaboration and changing ideas and changing results, because it will take you. It's like in any other industry, which is, this is the main thing that we need to understand. It's like any other industry. It's nothing. It's very unique, but it's nothing special that you need to keep it to yourself. Always when you collaborate and you change ideas and you, because again, cannabis in every world, in every place in the world, once you grow it, it comes out different, and you need to check it with the people in your area and with the climate in your area and with the laboratories in your facility. So once you can change ideas and researchers, and when we will have open skies, we can also send scientists from one place to another to learn and to take the IP from one place to another. The sky's the limit.
Wonderful. I think our next speaker actually is I connected with regarding Israel and conferences. So I love that, because I love to go to different parts of the world and share and learn. And I hope to connect with you in person at one of these conferences or some other collaboration. But thank you so much again. Awesome.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Inbar.
Thank you, Inbar. We appreciate you coming on, and we